and thank you so much for joining me for a live spin cycle. I think this is going to be a pretty awkward time for many, many people, unless you live in Oz, maybe in the USA, but it'll be very late in the USA. And I think London or the UK is just waking up. So probably most people will catch this on catch up. But I wanted to do a live spin cycle because I wanted to sort of address the media reaction to Meghan's latest venture sort of close to the time, because pretty much I think the puff is going to go out of this story within a few days. I think they've got a real lemon on their hands. And I wanted to ask the question, because Spin Cycle is all about examining the dark arts of PR and spin. And I wanted to ask the question, when does promo turn into propaganda? Because I really think when it comes to that, I think Netflix has won the award this week. Because I think propaganda is when you're pretty much gaslighting the public and telling them that what they're seeing with their own eyes isn't actually happening. And I think the promo for this cooking series is getting into those realms because they're expecting us to believe a lot of things that just aren't true. Also, after their total stinker lemon with Polo, it looks like they've got another stinker or lemon with this one, very much so. But as Meghan has taught us in her brief trailer already, anything can be elevated with mint leaves and strawberries. So maybe Netflix will have to drag out the mint leaves and the strawberries. The other thing I want to examine in this live is Meghan's production team actually trolling her at this point? I want to ask your opinion, everybody in the live chat. Now, I'm going to leave the live chat actually active, so everyone watching this on replay, you can see what everyone thinks and see all their comments. But I wanted to ask you, what do you actually think about Meghan's production team allowing such a stinker, such a lemon of a trailer to go out to try and promote this show? I mean, if I worked on that team, if you worked on that team, would you let, presuming that you were trying to present her in the best light, not the worst light, would you let a trailer like that go out where she's basically scooping ice cream into bowls on top of strawberry jam and then horrors of horrors, garnishing it with mint and strawberries, which is like something a 12-year-old would do if they were sort of venturing into the kitchen for the first time, and their parents would applaud them and say, well, that looks nice, and hope that eventually by the time they got to adulthood that they would develop beyond that point, because it was just such a bad look. It was so juvenile and it was so clearly unimpressive that it makes me think that are her production team actually trolling her at this point? There were so many cringy moments, so many moments of questionable sort of hygiene. And that's not even being nasty or bitchy. It's just a basic thing. If you have long hair, you know, you would tend to, at the very least, tuck it behind your ears or put it in a ponytail or just get it out of the food. And also, if you're going to touch food, I would have on camera a real point of washing my hands. Maybe she does in the full series, and then inviting everyone else to stick their fingers in the focaccia before they flipped the focaccia. It just looked a bit grotty. It just looked a little bit unappetizing. And the focaccia looked like a sort of flat frisbee, you know, that looked like a bit of an old boot. So, you know, that is my, brief examples. There's many more. But if you had a professional production team, camera crew, presumably millions of dollars on this budget, renting this multi-million-dollar mansion and having stylists and chefs, and wouldn't you just look at that trailer and say, you know what? You're going to have a lot of people mock you if you put out this trailer. I just can't believe the level of incompetence that is around her, that is around this couple. I can't believe it. And presumably they're paying people a lot of money for a lot of promo work, a lot of PR, a lot of advice. And I've got to tell you, Meghan, most of it is crap. It is such low standard. I would sack the lot sack the lot. Unless she's ignoring all their advice and maybe, it's been said. I mean, let's face it. The Hollywood Reporter said she ignores all advice. So maybe that's what's happening. Hello to everybody. Hello, just me. I always wear disposable gloves when preparing food. Well, that's very good of you. I think for the aesthetic, I think disposable gloves probably, I don't know. I notice it in a lot of professional cooking shows, Jamie Oliver and Nigella and all that sort of thing. They don't. But for some reason with Jamie Oliver and Nigella and that, I don't get that sort of ooh feeling. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And of course, the Marchioness of Bath in her cooking show, Emma's Kitchen, she just inspires you and makes you want to keep looking. I don't know whether it's the lack of disposable gloves. It's just the whole thing, the hair hanging in the food and the whole thing. There was just a little bit too much touching of that focaccia for my liking. It just sort of put me off a little bit. Let's see what else everyone else is saying. This is from Peony Pink. I think it's Netflix's master plan. They can gracefully back out and dump them with no backlash. No one will blame them, just like Spotify. Maybe, but gee, that's a clever take actually, but that's a lot of money to spend to avoid backlash, because the backlash is already there at this point. I think, really Netflix has really done themselves some damage with these last two series. I can't understand why the heads aren't rolling at Netflix. Maybe they are behind the scenes. But to produce such two clear stinkers, two clear lemons that cost the company so much money, surely they're looking at who signed off on this and really looking at whether they should have a job, because it's just bad. It's just bad. And of course you can say, well, they're doing it to get the hate watchers. Well, no, because the hate watchers aren't tuning in. That's evident with Polo. They're not even getting the negative watches. They're not even getting that boost, because the numbers for Polo were atrocious. Atrocious. It is no way they are going to recoup their budget. So we're going to look into all that. I'm going to look at the media reaction, and I'm also just going to pay tribute to the fact that, of course, we know that with mint and strawberries that anything can be elevated, and you might have seen this on the thumbnail. This is Harry being elevated with some mint leaves, and my daily apple being elevated with some mint leaves. I was going to put a strawberry on the top, but I thought it was probably a little too much. We need to try and be a little bit subtle. What do you reckon? So there has been a little bit of positive reaction from the hardcore media, the typical culprits, She Knows, In Style, People Magazine, that sort of thing. The ones you would expect, in other words. And there's been a lot of negative reaction. Now, I'm not going to give the Daily Mail credit for this, because the Daily Mail, which I'll show you in a bit, actually did acknowledge the fact that it seems that we've seen a lot of all this before, but that came up on X first. So it's obvious to me that the Daily Mail follows very clever people on X very closely and use that to generate their stories, which, okay, that's fine, but I really think that they should credit them a little more than that. I do notice that in this latest article, they do say, they make a reference to the fact that other, people are saying so, but maybe they should call out in a positive way some X handles that actually do some stellar work, actually do some really good research, and usually are the first ones on the scene with the real story. So, maybe there needs to be credit where credit is due in 2025. So what they're referring to, and this is someone on X actually saw this first, was there's an Etsy shop with love from Abigail, and it looks suspiciously similar one would say. And it makes you wonder whether Abigail's actually going to do anything about that. It would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because I presume that that is a trademark. It's a rather, posh and very good store on Etsy. So it'd be interesting to see what unfolds with that. This is the Daily Mail actual article. So I'll just show you the headline. So where did you get your ideas from, Meghan? Viewers spot all the scenes in Duchess's new cooking show that feel familiar, from the Marchioness of Bath to Ladybug Bruschetta and Kate, which was called Catherine, referring to the bee scene. So yes, okay, but let's have a look at that. I went in and put the two photos side by side. I did this myself. I got this photograph from the In Style article. And I also just went online and got a rather blurry photo of the Marchioness of Bath from Emma's kitchen. And you can see the aesthetic, the idea was very, very similar. And when you put them side by side like that, it's quite stunning just how much Meghan has ripped off pretty much all her ideas. Now, In Style did pretty much one of the only flattering articles first up about what Meghan was actually wearing. I don't mind that dress. Let me know down below or add to the side in the chat. What do you think? What do you think about Meghan's dress? Do you think it's awful or do you think it's okay? I think it might be okay. I can't find a lot to sort of criticise about that one. Meghan Markle's pleated periwinkle dress is a complete 180 from her royal style. Okay, they always have to bring, the royal family and royal style. They always have to get that little dig in, that little attack, don't they? She's entered her rich Montecito mom era. Now, this to me would embarrass me if it was me, because it's so pretentious. It's so pretentious. It's so out of touch. It's so sort of classless to say her rich Montecito mom era. It just, it just doesn't show any class at all. Maybe they're trolling her too at this point. I have no idea. So this is the description in InStyle, and I thought it was worth pointing out that they could not just describe what Meghan was wearing without mentioning her bloody gold Cartier tank watch again. So they go into the description of the dress, and then they've got to mention with Princess Diana's gold Cartier tank watch, along with a stack of gold and diamond bracelets. Is that her tennis bracelet again? Meanwhile, her dark brunette hair was worn down in loose waves, right in all the food. No. With her middle part. So that was In Style's contribution. I went over to read it because I wanted to get the photograph to compare it to the Emma's Kitchen promo. So let's have a look what the Oz media said, and I think it's been quite brutal actually, and I have enjoyed reading it, but it has been that unique sort of Aussie version of cutting to the chase, let's say. Meghan's syrupy, unachievable, airbrushed fantasy, and the article was absolutely scathing, and I've got a little snippet just to share with you from the Australian. So we can ignore her gently waving hair spiraling into the bowl, the jewelry bedecked fingers deep in focaccia dough in the trailer of her latest Netflix foray. And then they said, we are supposed to focus on her smile and her stain-free white clothes. And were they ironed? Were they ironed this time? But they said, ultimately, syrupy, unachievable, carefully airbrushed fantasy. And that's been a main criticism because, indeed, it is not how most people live their lives. I would argue that it's not even how the Marchioness of Bath actually lives her life. She seems to be incredibly hardworking. I mean, they basically have a tourist park at Longleat. So... and she does so much promo for her wonderful stately home. And, I think she just works a very long week. She just seems to work very, very hard and relentlessly. And it's interesting that the sort of style that Meghan has pinched really sort of featured from Longleat, from the kitchens of Longleat, beautiful historic kitchens, over 450 years old. It's really stunning to watch. If you can look it up on YouTube, I suggest you watch it. But, that came out in 2018. Whoop, just hit the microphone, sorry. And what does that tell you? That Meghan was looking for her post-royal, life, or her promo team, her PR team, were looking for aspects of what she could do when she ran away back to the USA. Obviously, they were doing research back then because a lot of this was actually obviously sourced back in 2018. I find that very, very interesting. From the Courier Mail, which is my local rag in Brisbane, Duchess of Sussex with love. Meghan's Netflix show promotes edible flowers for breakfast. So another really scathing article. And isn't it absolutely ridiculous to think that edible flowers ain't cheap, honey. And even if you grow them yourself, it's quite sort of picky. I could imagine doing it for a special occasion, special party. People freeze cranberries, don't they, into ice cubes for Christmas and lovely things like that. So I know people enjoy doing sort of stylish things like that, particularly over Christmas and other holidays, because they've got the time off work to actually make that sort of effort. But really, the way Meghan's depicting everything, it's like this is how everyone lives their life day to day with a nice edible flower ice cube in your morning orange juice or mimosa. So it is just so cringy. The Telegraph, I'll bring this one up because it's a little bit small for me to read. 7 baffling moments in Meghan's Netflix trailer. Now this is really juicy and I can't wait to share this with you. I actually shared this on X and I shared a little snippet with it in the community. Now this is gobsmacking because I cannot believe the lengths the Telegraph are going to actually tell the truth. I can't believe it. It's so refreshing. We're not getting the dark arts of spin and PR. All of a sudden, we're getting a lot of truth. And it fascinates me. And I'm wondering what more is coming out at this point. Also makes me a little bit angry because we all know that, 4 or 5 years ago, anyone that dared to tell the truth about this couple was shamed. Openly shamed. And I'm going to actually refer to a few commentators today that have completely changed their tune, that are even joining in the mocking of Meghan and her cooking show. And they're the very ones that were the very first people to shame everyone that said even anything mildly negative or even just raising pertinent, sensible questions. They were shamed. Really shamed by these people. And how they changed their tune. How they changed their tune. Now, this is the thing I'm referring to. Now, they were talking about the fact that that's not the one. I've got to find the one. This is it from the Telegraph. Okay. They have tried their hands at various pursuits in time, and I'll skip the boring part. Let's get to the good big juice. Now, listen to this. This is gobsmacking. The only big hits have come when they've done what they undeniably do best. Wind up the critics. So they're saying they're deliberately winding up people. That's the first time I have heard any broadsheet media actually admit to that. Now this, I just nearly jumped up and down and saying hallelujah. Troll comment sections. Now don't forget, they're talking about Harry and Meghan. Specifically Harry and Meghan, winding up their critics deliberately, trolling comment sections. The Telegraph is saying this, drawing out hate clicks and turning up the annoying to, double or 11. Can you believe that? I couldn't believe that. They're admitting what everybody has been saying on YouTube and on social media for the last at least 4 years, that this is an organised campaign, that they have an organised campaign of attacking the royal family, that they pop out of the woodwork with all their PR and spin whenever Catherine and William are doing anything of note. This has been happening for years and years and years. And here we have the Telegraph actually acknowledging the fact that they do that they wind up their critics. but the trolling comment sections. So are they implying by that? Tell me, Telegraph. I would love for someone to come on the Vintage Read Show and explain to us this sudden change of heart. Because are they implying that the Sussex Squad, that they employ certain groups to troll comment sections? Is that what they're implying? Are they implying that there are actual bots trolling comment sections? Are they implying that Meghan and Harry themselves actually have secret social media accounts and sit there of a night on their dual laptops making comments in comment sections while they relentlessly, doom scroll on all their hashtags that mention them? What are you saying? What are you saying? You can't just drop that in there, okay? I want more explanation. I do. Now, the previous slide was also from the Telegraph, and they were saying how this, I thought this was funny, that the Netflix is claiming that it's blending practical how-tos and candid conversation with friends new and old, which is, a lot of, well, they're not very exciting friends, are they? They're not very exciting friends. The only friend I really love is her handle's Heart Mum. I followed her on Instagram way before she became associated really with Meghan, or when there was a lot of sort of cross promo between Meghan and her. I just admired her and thought that she was a very brave mama, and I really can't say a bad thing about her other than her friendship with Meghan Markle. But though mostly it looks like her putting petals on donuts and challenging her friends to say, whoa. The other thing I forgot to say in my snarky snippet, if you haven't heard that, if you want to giggle, you can go over and hear my snarky snippet. But when I sort of snarked Mindy Kaling, and her reaction about saying this is probably one of the most glamorous moments of my life, many people immediately pointed out in the comments, Mindy, you've been to the Met Gala, for goodness sake. I mean, you've been to the Oscars, for goodness sake. I mean, I know that's all, Hollywood, and it's all just promo and publicity and the dark arts of spin and PR. I realise that, but it's rather glamorous. It's rather glamorous to get to go to the Met and say you got an invite to go to the Met Gala ball. I mean, really? And you're comparing that to a Victoria sponge that a chef made off camera and that Meghan's pretending to slice proudly? Oh, that does it for you, honey. Maybe, you should quit show business and just go into being a full-time homemaker. If that's the epitome of glamour to you, well, go with it. Go with it. That would be the best thing. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Meghan McCain. I loved her dad. I thought he was a very impressive person, and I thought the way he bravely fought his brain cancer at the end. I know that a lot of his reputation was sort of affected by the huge fight between him and Donald Trump. And I think that was a real pity near the end of his life. I really couldn't stand Meghan McCain on The View. I found her a bit of a bully, a bit bombastic. But I will read out this headline because it was the Hollywood Reporter headline. Meghan McCain criticises Meghan Markle's new Netflix show, calling it utterly tone deaf. Well, I will agree with that. And she went into more detail. I was surprised when I, read this. I was originally a Meghan Markle supporter. I thought she was cool, stylish and refreshing. And like the rest of the world, my opinion changed when she disrespected the royal family. So, that rings true. I was surprised that she said she was originally a supporter. I was surprised. I don't know whether I can believe that. Can you believe that? What do you think? This is from Nick Bull. Has anyone else gone to the Netflix YouTube channel and left a thumbs down or a comment? I only learned about it yesterday. I'm not on social media, just YouTube. Well, I've got that to show you because I've got the screen grab of the latest stats from just before I came on air. It was actually reported by news.com. There'll be more now. And guess who actually reported the stats for the Netflix thing? Daniela Elsa, our friend Daniela Elsa, who picked on Prince George and picked on Catherine, Princess of Wales, and doesn't have a kind thing to say about the royal family. She actually, dug the boot into Meghan's cooking show, and she provided those, Nikki. So that is very interesting. I'm going to share those in a little bit. I can't speak. I need to put my teeth back in. I'm doing dry January. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I need to have a drink. I don't know. But I was going to talk and everything gets stuck. It's really strange. Really, really strange. Maybe I'm a bit excited. Another thing that Meghan McCain said, just to finish up on what she said, was she referred to the 2 terror attacks and the major wars raging. And that's a good point. And the fact that Americans can't pay for groceries. And look, there's a cost of living crisis all over the world. And so there's all this rage and uncertainty. I thought she made a really pertinent point. And so she was saying that the concept is actually ill-advised. Yeah, hallelujah to that. I agree with that. It was very ill-advised. Now, this is from The Guardian. Now, this surprised me because you would think that The Guardian would be all pro-Meghan. Let's have a look at this headline. Let them eat sponge cake. We watch Meghan Markle's cooking show trailer so you don't have to. Okay. All right then, Guardian. You have picked a lane. And this is interesting. Who is this show good for? It's a good question. Perhaps it's for those drawn to the trad wife aesthetic, but who aren't quite ready to go full ballerina farm. And I do find it interesting about that hypocrisy, about the fact that Meghan was always implying, and Meghan's minions like Omen Scobie and etc. were always implying that Catherine was sort of this nobody, homely sort of figure that never really achieved anything in her life, that was rolled out, for PR and photo op purposes for the royal family whenever they had a scandal to distract people from this is their spiel. It's not what I'm saying. And so they always implied that she was just like this little homebody that was waiting around for William to marry her. And then after they got married was, very much just a mum and very much focused on her family, which is one of the key things that I really admire about her, actually. But if you want to actually see Catherine's real achievements, I've done a video that points out all her real achievements. And some of them have been of global importance. She doesn't, blow her own horn. So you don't really get to hear all this, but she has won not awards, not silly paid for awards, but she has won recognition from specialists and experts in the early childhood sort of era thing. And it's real. It's real. I mean, one of the studies that she helped commission and she convened experts to all come together, it forms the basis. It forms the foundation of early childhood practice now. And she brought that about and she funded it with the Royal Foundation. So I will link after this live, I'll go in and I'll link to that video because I really think it's important to celebrate what Catherine has really achieved. And she really has achieve big things. It's just that she doesn't go around and, like I said, blow her own horn. So she has really achieved great things. So isn't it ironic that we've got this sort of criticism and then you've got Meghan basically doing an 8-part series as a Stepford wife? I mean, that's basically what she's done, because we all know she doesn't really work other than on her own image. She doesn't really work when it comes to big charity ventures. I mean, she puts in 1 hour a week for the Archwell Foundation. So when she's not turning up at awards that she's paid for or Harry's paid for or doing the red carpet appearances or car park pat walks, she doesn't really do a lot other than these vanity projects that are funded with these huge production budgets that is just really money down the drain. Just money down the drain. Again, at Netflix. Who, what, where, when, why? Because really, you shouldn't have a job anymore. Crazy, 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 crazy stuff. So let's have a look at another headline. Now, the Sunday Times tack was the fact that Meghan actually rented her neighbour's multi-million-dollar mansion to actually film the thing in. And that's the thing. If you're going to have an authentic series about showing how you really live and how you bring joy into every moment and how you elevate things to make them beautiful, well, wouldn't you do it in your own home? Wouldn't you share that aspect of you? I mean, the Marchioness of Bath actually shares that aspect. Admittedly, Longleat is absolutely stunning and beautiful, and if you lived there, who wouldn't share it? But that the point is, she shares from her own kitchens. Emma's kitchen is filmed in her own kitchens, and so that has more meaning, I would imagine. Wouldn't, don't you think? Don't you think? Yes. Okay. So the mirror, and then I've got some really juicy stuff to show you, which I think is interesting just at the end of this live. Meghan Markle's laughable Netflix trailer slammed by experts and leaves viewers baffled. Now this is actually leading into Tessa Dunlop actually talking to the mirror. But before I do, I will show you Danielle Elsa's thing. At the time of Danielle Elsa actually publishing her article, it had 7,500 thumbs up and 48,000 thumbs down. Now, I'm sure that many of you know that that has gone up. Those numbers have changed now. But isn't it interesting that MSM are reporting on that and pointing out that it is an absolute lemon? Polo was a little bit different. There was a little bit more hyperbole. There was a little bit more support just initially when it first released. But with this, everyone is going for the jugular straight away. No one wants to be on the wrong side of this one. No one wants to give it a positive review off the back of that trailer because it's just so obviously a stinker. So obviously a stinker. Now, before I get on to Tessa Dunlop, I wanted to talk about this. Now, this is the question I asked at the start of the live. When does promo sort of slip into propaganda? Now, listen to this. Netflix says that the inspiring 8-episode series will reimagine the genre of lifestyle programming. It has not reimagined anything. It's drawn from 2 decades of lifestyle programming that has followed this set and successful formula, and it hasn't reimagined anything. It's just taken that and put Meghan in it. That's basically all they've done. So there is no reimagining the genre. My God, who wrote this guff? And do they really expect us to believe it? No, they don't. And it's really a form of gaslighting. Because, of course, we all know, total rubbish. All right, the promotional material adds that it will highlight how easy it can be to create beauty, even in the unexpected. What, in a bowl of ice cream, adding some mint leaves and strawberries? I mean, and the focaccia wasn't very interesting. If you want to see a good focaccia, go to Emma's kitchen. She put some little cherry tomatoes in it and put some more herbs in it. And if you really want to see a good focaccia, just go to a good Italian nonna's YouTube channel and see how it's really done. Because, this was not it. This was not it, people. Like I said, it was like a flat frisbee. And of course, how insulting to people that are struggling in this cost of living crisis. The fact that you can elevate things into beauty by going to an exclusive flower shop. Can you imagine anyone that works for a living being able to go into a flower shop like that and actually just, gravitate towards certain blooms and then come home and arrange them really badly? And arrange them so they're totally destroyed and they just look like a mess. And none of the colours go together. It just looked like a bland beige blob. That's what her flower arranging looked like. And, the implication that people have the time to stroll along their private orchards with a, basket in tow and delicately pick things. I mean, most people work for a living, and most people, even though they work a full-time job, even though they have kids, they manage to entertain their friends and family because they love them and they go to great lengths and to great trouble to make it beautiful. But this was sort of almost to the point of mocking reality. It was just crazy, absolutely crazy. And I actually made a comment too, because it did fill me with a little bit of fury, was the fact that all it displays that is easy is that if you marry a prince and you have zero creative talent, like you're a real zero creative talent, that you can actually win a 7-figure creative deal from a major streaming platform just because you married a prince. That's what it all comes down to, because this series proves it. Her podcast proves it, that she has no talent. She can't even fake it. People can see through it. It's just crazy. I mean, you think about all the talented people that are out there and these sort of, wannabe people cosplaying talent receiving seven-figure deals. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. Now, this is Tessa Dunlop. Now, we all know Tessa Dunlop was the first one to shame anyone that had any criticism for Meghan Markle over the last 4 or 5 years. But she says that it's easy to mock. She was talking to the Mirror. I mean, come on. A reality series in which one of the richest women in the world is pretending she can teach us little tips and tricks, demonstrating how we can incorporate these practices into our domestic lives as she meanders through her sun-dappled kitchen garden, retro basket in hand, before attending those designer beehives dripping with honey. It's so out of reach for the vast majority, it is laughable. And I'm guessing that it's a bit out of reach for Tessa. I'm imagining that. And that's why she sort of switched camps, because I've never really noticed before that Tessa Dunlop has ever really wanted to get to the heart of the truth about Meghan Markle or Prince Harry in the past. I don't know whether I can say that, Susanna Brown, but if anyone catches Susanna Brown's comment, it was very scathing about Tessa Dunlop and rather to the point. Rather targeted. Observation station, right. She's not into food. She wants the camera on her shrinking face. Ouch. Oh, boom. That is brutal. Actually, I read an really funny article about someone was saying that, half of Hollywood is shrinking to half their size because of Ozempic. And they're wondering what's going to happen, in the future when really the side effects become apparent. I think I would rather just work out, avoid carbs and, eat good fats and try and do it naturally. What about you? Is anyone on the chat on Ozempic? Not for diabetes, but actually to lose weight. That would be interesting. And what's your experience? What's your experience with that? I'm going to share bling. Tessa Dunlop has always been 100% hardcore. Absolutely agree. She has. And, if I was 100% hardcore, I would feel a tad embarrassed to suddenly just change camps and expect it to be plausible and expect to get away with it. But they do. There's no consistency, is there? And that, again, is a form of gaslighting, because you're watching them, for 4 years be rather convincing. I mean, I was never convinced. Probably you were never convinced. But, rather convincing, touting why we shouldn't be attacking this woman. And then, all of a sudden, she's saying she's easy to mock. So where did that come from? Complete 180. From Tessa Dunlop. Now, this looks like a funny comment. Alison Anderson. Hi, Alison. How you going? I put my boysenberry jam on top of my ice cream and mint grows rampant in my backyard, also known as garden in New Zealand, Rachel. We make mint sauce frequently. I had it wrong. Now, see, that's a classy way to do it. If you put your jam on top of your ice cream like a Kool-Aid and then put your mint leaves on the top, that's class, Alison. You know what you're doing. But if you put the jam in the bottom and then scoop ice cream and then really ineffectively and really, with your fingers all over it, and obviously unused to garnishing anything, she takes about half an hour to do it. It's just bad. And how are the donuts? Oh my goodness me. Oh, that's an interesting comment, Polly Parrott. I have an acquaintance with multiple sclerosis who was put on Ozempic because she couldn't really exercise to lose weight. That's a brilliant use of it, isn't it? Isn't that brilliant to actually help somebody in that way? I think that is wonderful. I think if it can be used for people that really need it, or someone who is morbidly obese and could suffer really, awful health crisis basically before they could manage to lose weight, of course you would support that. But, so you look good on the red carpet. I don't know. I think it shows a lack of discipline. I have doctors in the family. There are obese people who really do get help from Ozempic and similar pharmaceuticals. Well, that's what I've just said, Stephanie. If you really need it for a health benefit. But we're often talking about with Hollywood stars and celebrities that they already look fantastic. I mean, they might be carrying a few 10 extra pounds maybe. And then they go on it and they look, like a sort of runway model. They're so thin. I just think that is probably not a good use of it. And I just hope that they don't suffer side effects, because someone that's morbidly obese or, has a disease that prevents them from exercising or even eating properly, or their life circumstance prevents them, or they're on drugs that make them stack on weight. Well, yes, of course it's a help. And then probably the side effects are worth it, because there's, you can weigh it up. But I don't know. I'm not a real go-to pharmaceutical type person. I'm a little bit wary. I'm not a woo-woo conspiracy theorist. Like, I go to the doctor when I have to, and I take, prescriptions. My kids, if they need a prescription, I'm normal. I'm normal. But it wouldn't be a go-to if you, weren't, really obese. That's all I'm saying. Marie Martin scraggy and scruffy doesn't look good on the red carpet. Oh, I love your comments. I do. Now, I've got something a little bit more serious just to finish up the live with, okay? I got into just enjoying what you were saying, and I forgot all about the reason why I was here. So there's a blank screen, so I know that this is the start of the thing. And it's this. This is from Radar Online, okay? Now, I'm surprising because this is just representative of a lot that has turned up in the media over the last 2 or 3 days. Some people are saying that the reason why the Netflix sort of promo dropped so early, because it's not due to, it's not scheduled to play until January the 15th, was the fact that the surrogacy questions are being raised now in the media. And they're thinking that it was a distraction. Well, let's hope and pray that this gets some legs and there's some proper investigative journalism. I hope some people come forward with knowledge that they have. I'm just going to bring this up big for you so you can see it. So Prince Harry and Meghan Markle plunged into surrogacy scandal after actress estranged dad cast doubt on birth of their son Archie. Now, we know that was ages ago. We know that was around the time of Samantha Markle and Dan Wooten interview. I know that. But the thing is, it's coming up again. This time it doesn't seem to be going away. I'm seeing it a lot. There's little glimpses of it. There's little references to it. Now, this is what interested me the most, though, about this, the palace source. Now, Buckingham Palace is being pressured to remove Prince Archie 5 and Princess Lilibet 3 from the UK's royal line of succession until the Duchess of Sussex 43 provides absolute proof that she popped out both babies herself. Now check this out. A high-level palace courtier claimed this scandal comes as no surprise. Speculation about the children has been simmering for years. Now that's a bit of mischief-making. A high-placed palace courtier. Now, that's sort of mischief-making because they're not saying enough. I also think it's a very dangerous position to take. If you say that that has been known for years, well, then why the hell wasn't some action taken? And why wasn't there more questions raised? Why hasn't proof been needed for the line of succession? I'm not saying that they are surrogate births, although I have produced many videos which has pointed out the inconsistencies in their story and the inconsistencies in Spare and inconsistencies in size of her baby bump in photos and inconsistencies that have been pointed out by many other people. And as you know, YouTubers that broke this first way before my time, a few years before I came on talking about Spare, they were vilified for raising these questions. And now all of a sudden, It's okay. You can talk about it. You can even talk to a high-level palace courtier, and they will say, well, actually, okay, and they quote Lady C in the article as well. And I know Lady C received a lot of criticism because she was promising that there was going to be a big reveal and a big story that was coming in the spring. And then around that time, her book was released. And a lot of people were very critical and disappointed because they thought that it was going to be something else, a big reveal. But one thing I will say, we don't know for sure that Lady C hadn't been given the heads up that around the time that she was dropping her book, that some admissions or some information was actually going to come out. And that's the trouble. When you're given the heads up on a lot of this stuff, you can't really rely on it because a lot of people get cold feet. A lot of people will be saying, yes, I'll even come on the show and talk about this with you up until the point when you're about to record, and then they pull out because they're too scared. They're too scared about getting sued, or they're too scared about, some backlash where they might lose their job or something like that. I know for a fact that there are a lot of journalists that know a lot more than they're letting on, reputable journalists that will not go on the record because their papers have warned them off. They don't want to get sued. I think a lot more will come out once these final court cases with Harry are wrapped up, and he's going to lose a lot of money, I think. But I think once they're over, I think you will find that MSM will be a little braver in actually divulging what they really, really know. Let's see what Marianne says just before we go. You hit the nail on the head saying she's so juvenile, the way she ran on the beach and the cooking like a child, was so proud of her first attempt. Yes, it smacked of that, didn't it, Marianne? And that made me think, how they always say that Harry is stuck as 12 because of his trauma and all that. I wonder whether he married another 12-year-old. Because she does keep harking back to the Procter & Gamble. I wrote a letter, when she was 11 or 12. So they seem to be sort of always harking back to that particular era of their lives. And maybe they both married each other because they recognized that they're both stuck at 12. Maybe they realized that. I don't know. I always love taking something pretty ordinary and elevating it, except for Harry. Well, that was my point. With my thumbnail, actually, with Harry with the mint leaves on top. It does cover up his bald patch, but it doesn't really elevate him that much. Maybe if you put the mint leaves in front of the face, it might elevate Harry. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it because I know it was at a really weird time. And like I said, if you missed out and are watching this on Catch Up, hello, we all say hello. And I have left the live chat sort of active for you so you can see what all these clever people think and say, you know what, when I click out of lives and I go back, I'm going to put that link for the thing about Catherine in the description box. I read all your comments, all the ones that I missed during the live because I'm a little bit too busy getting slides up. I go back and read all your comments. And they're so informative and you know so much. And often I read something and I think, oh, that's a good tack. That's a good angle. So I'm using you, just like the Daily Mail uses everyone on X. So have a lovely rest of the weekend. It's the weekend for us here anyway. You might be on Friday elsewhere in the world. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you again next week. Now the awkward click out. See you, everyone. Bye. See you later.